do.
Right. So let's go ahead and get started. So obviously, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, you're always going to see the same benefits from it. And so what changes is the strategy, but the reason that we try to find different strategies is because we want to see outcome. We all want to be able to have a life with less stress. We all want to have more energy. We all want to be able to achieve our goals more efficiently. But in order to be able to do that is we need to be able to prioritize. So how do we find the stuff that are important is what is the first thing that we need to come into the realization to. How are we able to identify what it is that matters most?
I guess always questions what it's worth, because again, like a lot of times, people are gonna ask you for help for something, but is that really important to you? Is that really gonna mess up your schedule? And a lot of times we already have a plan in mind, and then while we're doing something, we kind of get distracted with something else, and then we start working on something else. So there's really like, I guess we don't focus on the end. We focus on the now, and we're not following. I guess it links back to being a lot of, like, emotional, because if you feel like you need to take care of something, while we're already working on something else, and you get distracted because you feel the need to fix that other thing that's in the way, it's gonna, I think it has to do with your emotional, or your thought process, that you kind of put something else on the side and give priority to something that really wasn't on the list before. But I believe it happens to everybody. I'm not sure if it's just me, but you were working on something, and then something is in the same vicinity, and you start working on that too. So, and at the end of the day, you don't get any of those two things fixed.
Right. So it really comes down to because you talked about, how it is that you feel, and those things that pop in. But I think generally we'll be able to find a general pattern as to how our lives go about each week. And so what first of all, the first thing that we need to do is be able to audit, and find out what does our week look like and where does most of our time go to. Because as much as we like to think, that there are those times when yes, it is going towards other responsibilities or towards helping other people rather than primarily putting our face mask on, the reality is that there are a lot of time wasters within there, whether it's spending too much time on social media or taking longer than you should, time, taking longer to get out of bed. What is it that is really eating up that time that you could be using a lot more effectively?
I think that with the time audit, we'll come to realize that we are wasting time on other things. Like I said, when you're starting a task and then you get kind of diverted into something else just because it's around the area where you were at. I'll give you an example. Let's say you were gonna, I don't know, let's say you were gonna uh, bake something, and before you know it, you're cleaning the fridge, you know. But really, your intentions were just to do your baking or your cooking. But you open the fridge, and now you took it upon yourself to start cleaning the fridge. Now, is cleaning your fridge important? Probably it is, but probably not at the time that you chose it, because you already had another task in mind. And these are the kind of distractions that we see every day. And now that you mentioned social media, I mean, we do see like that we tend to, every time that there's an opportunity, we check the phone. A lot of us, that's the first thing we check when we wake up, our phone.
Right. So, definitely awareness, and the other thing that we could probably look at, it's the arrangement, so if you know that once you become aware that those distractions exist, how could you arrange your surroundings in a way that it won't be much of a problem for you to be distracted from the main task. And from that, you'll be able to adapt into new patterns, into new habits that are going to help you be more productive during the day.
And I guess that's where you start creating the adaptations and the habits that start building, and you start going from being more, I guess, proactive in your days.
Right. So one of the tools that I found super useful, is the Eisenhower matrix. Had you heard about this before researching into this topic?
Actually, Steve Covey has something similar on the seven. highly effective people. And he has something similar, and I think it's kind of diverted from there. So I'm familiar with it. I haven't really looked at it. I've looked at Steve Covey's material, but when I was looking at it, it kind of reminded me of it, and I think that those are key things, tools to use to be able to at least start your time management.
So maybe you could tell me a little bit about the differences from the one I have here. So in the meantime, let me go ahead and just illustrate for those of you that are just listening. So what it is just what the Eisenhower matrix is just a quadrant. There's four squares, with a cross in between to divide to be able to have four different sections for you. And for those that are watching the video form, so this is basically what it looks like. So as you can see, it's a quadrant and each one is labeled with a different color. So the top left corner, what it says is the do's, and it's under the category of what's urgent and important. So what is urgent and important? That's what's going to go there. So, like if you have like a meeting that's already that's going to be scheduled, that's mandatory, then or there's a report due, there's something that has a deadline in it, that's definitely going to go there, in the do section. And then right next to it, you have the not so urgent. So in the not so urgent sections in the top right corner, what these are things that you'll be able to, they're important, but you could schedule at a later point of the day. So while the first quadrant has to be done immediately, the second part needs to be done equally as important. However, because the priority is a little bit less, you can probably get away with scheduling it later during the day. As far as the bottom left, you're going to be there's the delegate section. So this is stuff that, like you mentioned, sometimes we get caught up, because people ask something of us, or they want, or they need a favor, or maybe it's just something that, you focus too much from as a responsibility. And I'm sure you see this like in management roles, sometimes, you take on tasks that you think are important for yourself when really you could just be delegating it to someone else, because you know that it'll be just that, just as good, and you're not having to hold on to the steering wheel the whole time. So the delegate section is, basically something that you could, that there's some importance to it, but not so much where it needs to be hands-on. You could very well just pass the task, to someone else or get help with doing that. And then the bottom right section, so much time gets wasted there. So these are the stuff that are just distractions. What are the things that you could just delete? You can get rid of. You don't even have to worry about them. So as soon as you identify what those are, and of course you find that out by auditing your time, then you realize that, hey, all of a sudden you free up a big portion of your schedule.
I think it's important to remember, like in perspective, like when we are saying it, it looks kind of simple, but then once you start putting it into practice, it gets a little bit more difficult because we all of us are wired differently, and the people that are more hands on are gonna be struggling to let go of the task. But you have to think about it that if you maybe your time will be more valuable spent on something else that might get you closer to your goals or allow you to even expand your goals. And sometimes if we get caught up just trying to do that yourselves, you're gonna be kind of um, you're gonna be investing time where you could still monetize or do something better with your time because you could delegate that. And then we have also the type of people that overthink, and you have a hard time trying to decide where to put the actual importance on it, because sometimes for some of us everything's important. So this is going to help you kind of jot things down and get that area get sorted in your mind, your train of thoughts, to be able to see, okay, this is more important than the other, and be able to kind of measure the importance of things. So writing it down, I think it's a big deal for those people that like to see things like in a more I guess analytical spectrum. And for those other
Right.
ones that are, and for those other people that are like always like have a hard time concentrating or whatnot, this is also going to help you to kind of have a schedule in mind to follow during your day and to be able to stay on point with your goals and tasks you have during the day.
Yeah, this is definitely a task that you do want to write down, because it's not like, it's going to be really difficult to be able to like just imagine it in your mind and, categorize everything that you're doing within it. But if you're, but like we mentioned, like if you take a look at your week or even not, I mean, 7 days is a long time, but even if you look at a single day and break it up into this quadrant, written down, you'll be able to make a lot more sense of it. And that's the thing, I remember back then when I was when I was trying to fix, stuff within our budget, trying to increase our emergency savings and stuff like that. One of the things that was holding me back from trying that was the fear of seeing something I don't like. For example, I realizing that I was spending too much on food, or realizing that I was spending too much on my hobbies. And once we actually saw it, once we tore the band-aid off, we realized, you know what? Yes, there's a problem, but it's not that bad. It can be fixed. Or when we were looking at our debts, too, and trying to come up with a game plan to pay those off, same thing. We were afraid to look at it, but once we did, we were able to take action on it. And I wonder how many people that for them it's going to be the case where they're just afraid to reflect on their situation to think, well, I can't find time for the gym. I can't find time to read. I can't find to um, you know to whether it is go to school or whatever. But the truth is that you are going to find time if you take the time to look at it. If you make it your priority to find more time, you're going to find it.
Yeah, and it gives us the ability to focus on one thing at a time, and that's very important. Going back to our last podcast, we were talking about focusing on one thing at a time because this will allow you to focus in steps, and it'll give you the big picture, and always thinking about the end in mind that you have for your tasks or for your goals.